secret to the SCO. Let's move now, though, to the Middle East. And police in Tel Aviv say that all roads have been reopened just after midnight following massive demonstrations calling for a hostage deal and an end to the war in Gaza. 6 people were arrested after blocking the Ayalon highway and clashing with police. Earlier this on Sunday evening, tens of thousands gathered in Hostage Square in one of the largest rallies since the war began. Organisers claimed that about 500,000 people joined. The police did not confirm that number. The crowd there demanded the release of hostages and an end to the war in Gaza. We'll now have a listen to what some protesters have had to say.
We're here to make it very clear to the Israeli government that this is probably the last minute we have to save the hostages that are being held in the Hamas tunnels for almost 700 days, which is absolutely preposterous. And to say there's absolutely no alternative but a whole deal, one single deal that returns all of the hostages and put a stop to the war in Gaza.
Every day in the past 681 days we've been hoping for this nightmare to stop. I truly believe that all hostages should be home yesterday, but if not, then today. And we are hoping and praying that our government will hear us and listen to us, because I think it's a very clear majority of the Israeli people think that the war should stop.
Well, these protests capped a nationwide strike on Sunday with roads blocked across Israel and more than 30 demonstrators detained. Responding to this, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has criticised the movement, saying it strengthens Hamas. Meanwhile, the opposition leaders have blamed the government for failing hostage families. Let's now listen to what the Israeli opposition chief has had to say.
משביתים היום את המדינה מפני שהחטופים שלנו בעזה הם לא נתינים שמותר לממשלה להקריב בשביל המאמץ המלחמתי. הם אזרחים שהממשלה חייבת להחזיר הביתה למשפחות שלהם. לא יעצרו אותנו, לא יתישו אותנו, לא יעיפו אותנו, אנחנו נמשיך להילחם עד שהחטופים יחזרו הביתה, תהיה עסקה, תיפסק.
The Israel-Gaza war in its 22nd month has left more than 61,000 people dead in Gaza, that according to the territory's health ministry. Well, joining us to discuss these protests and of course the wider ramifications of the war in Gaza, Peter Baum, a foreign editor of the weekly Blitz, who joins us live from London. Peter, can I just get your first reactions to these widespread protests in Israel? What does that say about public perception on the war in Gaza?
Yes, good day to you all and to your viewers and listeners. I've been in touch all morning with protesters and people close to the government in Israel, and I think this is actually a tipping point. Undoubtedly, up until a couple of months ago, the war in Gaza, though unpopular, did have majority support within the population. That over the last few weeks has changed dramatically. And although I still believe there is a slight majority in favour in Israeli society of what the government are doing and their conduct of the war, the movement to end the war and to release the hostages is growing day by day and is probably on an unstoppable upward trajectory. This could well be the issue, excuse me, on which the government could actually fall. The increasing hostility towards the Netanyahu government within Israel, a functioning democracy, and the protests that we've seen over the weekend gives a wider public an indication of what's going on within Israeli society. I doubt if these protests will stop. I have every reason to believe they will increase. And it could be that Netanyahu and his government, in order to stay in power, will have to perhaps rethink their way forward in which they are conducting the war. So I do believe if the protests grow, and I think they will, this could be the issue on which the Netanyahu government may either have to change policy completely or call an election.
Yes, Peter, building on that, of course, we've seen Benjamin Netanyahu continuing with his offensives and planned expansions. Of course, he's been staunch in saying this is the best way to get the return of hostages, despite there being calls from ex-officials, military, intelligence, also senior officials within Israel who have said that an expansion is not going to help in returning the hostages. Do you actually believe that he will change path, or is this a turning point potentially more politically for Israel?
I think he will have to change path if the protests continue and increase. Let's be honest here. Hamas know the only bargaining chip they have at the moment are the hostages. But they also know that if Netanyahu continues with his policy to completely destroy their military capability, they may have no alternative, as they see it, but to kill the hostages, and that would be disastrous for every member of Israeli society. So this is a very delicate balancing game. I cannot believe, given the amount of protests and the number of people in senior positions who are coming out against Netanyahu, that he will have to do anything other than but to change course with his military actions and perhaps decide once and for all that the hostages above all need to be released and saved, and military action, I'm afraid, won't do it. It hasn't worked for a couple of years. It's not going to work in the next couple of months, I don't believe.
Well, Peter, thank you ever so much for those opinions and insights there. I wish we had longer